Politically and economically, Roman Athens was just another mid-size, moderately prosperous Greek city. It was smaller and poorer than Corinth, let alone Ephesus or Pergamum. Culturally, however, Athens, along with Alexandria, remained the center of the Greek world. It was here that all the great philosophers and authors of the classical era had made their careers. And so it was here that, generation after generation, came to visit the sites and lectures of sophists and scholars. Many of those tourists and students were Roman. Though they criticized the Athenians as decadent and corrupt, they were fascinated by the city's artistic and intellectual heritage. And since some of those Romans happened to be emperors, they made their appreciation manifest in a series of spectacular new buildings. This is the so-called Roman Agora, more or less an extension of the original Agora. We're looking toward the Gate of Athena Archigetis, the principal entrance. The inscription records that this gate, and likely the whole Agora, was built with money provided by Augustus. The gate was dedicated to Athena in her guise as foundress of Athens. On the other side of the Roman Agora is this capacious public latrine, which originally had no fewer than 72 seats, a sign of just how busy this space once was. And here we have the famous Tower of the Winds. Designed by the astronomer Andronicus of Kyrus, this was an elaborate clock tower with a horologion, or a water clock, inside, and sundials on each face. A weather vane crowned the roof, pointing toward one of the reliefs of the 8 winds that gave the building its name. Likely built in the 1st century BC, the tower is older than the Roman Agora itself. Pretty cool. Next to the Tower of the Winds is a mysterious public building sometimes called the Agora. And behind us, the peristyle around the main portion of the Roman Agora. The Library of Hadrian was the most elaborate building complex in Roman Athens. It consisted of a large courtyard bounded by porticos with a library at one end. The 100 columns of the portico were made of purple-streaked Phrygian marble, imported at vast expense from imperial quarries in the highlands of what is now northwestern Turkey. The walls of the library were faced with alabaster. Its ceiling was gilded. Little survives of this shimmering grandeur now, beyond part of the elaborate colonnaded facade. The library was destroyed during the Heruli raid of 267 and only crudely rebuilt. Here, on his eponymous hill overlooking Athens, is the tomb of Gaius Julius Antiochus Philopappos, Roman senator and consul under Trajan, a wealthy descendant of Hellenistic kings. He appears as a consul in the relief, flanked by lictors. Above, in the central niche, was a statue of Philopappos, flanked by his father on the left, and on the right by his illustrious ancestor, Seleucus I. The Odeon of Herodes Atticus is likely Athens' most famous Roman monument. It was built in the 2nd century by Hadrian's close friend, Herodes Atticus, who had the distinction of being both a Roman consul and famous orator, in Greek of course, as part of the Second Sophistic movement. It's an impressive monument, though largely rebuilt in the 20th century, and is used for performances even today. This is the Arch of Hadrian, set up to honor, you guessed it, Hadrian, the emperor who loved Athens best. It was a monumental gateway, and always looked more or less as we see it today, albeit probably with more sculpture in the upper story. It bears 2 inscriptions, one on the other side reading, "This is Athens, ancient city of Theseus." The other on this side reading, "This is the city of Hadrian, not of Theseus." The implication being that Hadrian had so endowed this part of Athens with rich new buildings that it was essentially a new city. This is the temple of Olympian Zeus, the largest temple in Athens and one of the biggest anywhere in the Greek world. Begun by the sons of the tyrant Pisistratus in the late 6th century BC, it was intended to rival the great temples of Hera at Samos and Artemis at Ephesus. But after the expulsion of the tyrants, with little more than the foundations completed, the temple remained unfinished for more than 300 years. Work resumed under the Seleucid king Atticus IV, who likened himself to Zeus. Using a Roman architect named Casutius, he planned a gargantuan Corinthian temple made with Pentelic marble. Part of the colonnade had been completed by the time he died. Then construction stalled again, with the exception of a brief period during the reign of Augustus, until Hadrian finally finished the temple, more than 6 centuries after work began. Originally, there were 104 columns, all of Pentelic marble. Only 15 still stand, with the 16th lying broken where it was felled by a 19th century storm. After Sulla's sack of Athens, the future dictator reportedly stole column drums from the unfinished temple to use in Rome's temple of Capitoline Jupiter. It is unclear whether the extant columns are Hellenistic, Roman, or both. The interior of the temple housed a gargantuan chryselephantine statue of Zeus. Not bad, according to Pausanias, considering the size of the thing. The courtyard was paved with gleaming marble and filled with dozens of statues of Hadrian, each set up by a Greek city in the emperor's honor. This temple of Zeus was really a temple of the emperor, a subtle reminder that, for all the gifts the Romans lavished on Athens, the center of power was always in Rome.